Okay, so, as should be obvious to anyone with a watch or a calendar, it is October. Which means it's almost Halloween. Fun times. Lots of horror movies. Fun times. Anyway, so I thought of something I don't think gets nearly many prominent videos as it should. Essentially a horror fighting game with a ton of the different horror movie villains all crammed into one roster. Now, this is just a roster, even though I do have an idea with a vague idea of what the story would be. Because this is assuming it would probably be a NetherRealm game because they're the only ones who would do it properly. So I have a script via phone. I'm going to put it here actually because I have to remember to have to scroll. Also, this is completely unrealistic and probably would never happen. It'd probably be more whatever Universal owns. So who knows? But yeah, we're just going to go through this. First off, you'd have pretty much all of the Universal monsters: Dracula, Wolfman, Frankenstein's monster, the Bride, Mummy, Creature of the Black Lagoon, and Invisible Man. Because they'd be relatively easy to get for one, and two, otherwise this is just going to be a slasher fest. And I want maybe a few that can actually talk, because a lot of these guys wouldn't be talking much, obviously. After that, you have a couple of the obvious ones: Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, Pinhead, Chucky, Ghostface, Leatherface, and Ash Williams. I told them the obvious ones because who in their right mind think they're not going to be in this? Followed by the Leprechaun, because especially if you can get Warwick Davis to voice him, it would be fun. His interactions with some of the characters would be hilarious. Candyman, because yeah, at least the first one is good. The other two are depends on how you feel. But yeah. And Pennywise, because let's be real, everyone wants Pennywise. And then that would be followed by the Tall Man from Phantasm, because at least that first movie is really good. Again, the franchise as it goes on is meh, but the first one especially is really good. And I think the second one's not bad either, but eh. And then Art the Clown, representing some more modern horror. And because clowns are creepy, so more clowns. Yay. Pumpkinhead, because that first movie is underrated as hell. Victor Crowley from Hatchet, because, again, something a little more modern. Well, more modern than fucking 80 slashers and Universal horror monsters. But anyway. Valrak from The Conjuring, because, again, something more modern and represents the supernatural horror a bit, even though I don't like that kind of horror. The Creeper, now that one, if you don't like the idea of him being in here because of the director, I firmly believe in separating art from artist, but whatever. You can replace him with one of my DLC picks. Herbert West, the Reanimator, because, I mean, a fan game made him work. I don't know why you can't. Therefore, I think a full-on company would be the Fisherman from I Know What You Did Last Summer, because, again, it's slightly more modern. The Predator and the Xenomorph, they made them work in Mortal Kombat. They can make it work here, and you can't have one without the other in my mind, so there. And then the last two are Sam from Trick or Treat, because if you're going to make Chucky and Leprechaun work, why not make a third? And you can argue, well, he's a kid. He's not. He's a pumpkin demon. Get it right. and Matt Cordell, aka the Maniac Cop, because police brutality is fun. He's your striker stand-in. And then I only did one season of DLC. The Djinn from Wishmaster, because I could see him being a final boss. I think him as DLC works. Van Helsing, because you need another good guy in here. There aren't very many of them. Jack from The Shining, because why not? Sadako and Koyako from The Ring and The Grudge, respectively, because there was no Japanese horror representation. So they're here to represent that. And The Miner from My Bloody Valentine, because it was the last big one that I hadn't represented. Now, the storyline would basically be Universal Monsters versus slashers. Basically, it's Dracula versus Pinhead. And kind of framing the Universal Monsters as the quote-unquote good guys. Let's put it this way. Out of everyone here, they're probably closer than most. Let's put it this way. The Universal Monsters are the lesser two evils in this story. Because Pinhead wants to plunge the world into hell. By comparison to Dracula, who is just doing what he has to do to survive. The Wolfman, who is compared to the Universal Monsters, who in majority all have at least some level of empathy. You can argue about the Mummy, but aside from the Mummy and the Invisible Man, all have at least some level of sympathetic element to them. So by comparison to Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, and Pinhead, yeah, they're definitely on the good side. Alongside Ash and Herbert West. And a couple others who aren't really into all this. And the Predator, because, yeah, when Pinhead starts using Xenomorphs as a weapon, the Predator decides, okay, this guy has to die. And a couple others who are slightly more human than most, because reasons. But anyway. Also, the reason I picked those 6 DLC, because I would have the Djinn as basically the latter final boss would be Pinhead. And then as part of the DLC, you would get a second ladder where the Djinn is the final boss. I have this idea for a DLC story where the Djinn tries to take control of basically Pinhead's little hellscape thing that he's got going on. So yeah. I did write out like story chapters, but I'm not going to go over that because the more I look at it, the more it doesn't make sense for the story I want to tell. So yeah, but there's a few. Obviously, there are more characters you could throw in. The strangers from that one movie. Jigsaw would be. I don't think you could put him as a fighter, though you could make it the pig. Any of the characters from Dead by Daylight, really, you could throw in. There's obviously video game characters I didn't include. I made them mostly movies for obvious reasons. But if you wanted to throw like Pyramid Head or Nemesis, like I said, if you don't like the Creeper, replace him with the Djinn, and you can put someone else in as DLC. I'm sure there's someone I didn't think of. But personally, I don't really care about what the director did. And it's my fucking thing, so what the fuck? There has to, at some point, you just have to realize Hollywood doesn't care, and we're well past the point where anything can be done about it, so what are we going to do, right? He's a shitty person, and I will never give him money if I can help it, but, you know. And I have a lot of ideas in my head for how this would work as a fucking story. Like, I have this scene in my head of Pinhead and Dracula fighting. Pinhead tried to get him with the chain. Dracula teleports. Tried to bite him. Pinhead throws him over. Tried to stab him. Dracula teleports again. Grabbed Pinhead by the throat. Like, there's some cool shit. I also had the idea of a really cool underwater fight scene between Jason and the creature of the Black Lagoon. Because, yep. I also like the idea of the creeper, like, of the creeper flying through a window and trying to kill Dracula. Also, Frankenstein versus Michael Myers. Yes, please. Or Frankenstein versus Victor Crowley. I like that idea too. Like Frankenstein monster fighting any of the bigger, bulkier guys. Jason or any of the ripoffs would work for that. The Bride, I mean, throw her against like Chucky or the Miner or any number of them. The Mummy, I like the idea of the Mummy going up against like Freddy and like throwing him into and using his magic to ping Freddy around the dream world and being like, bitch, please. The Mummy would look at Freddy and be like, bitch, please. Yeah, that would be funny. Like, for one, Freddy's being pinballed. Like, you can't kill Freddy, but he can make his life a living hell. But he's like, oh, bitch. Or the Wolfman versus Ghostface, because Ghostface would get slaughtered, and we all know he would. And it would be funny to tell. Or, like, if you want it to devolve into, like, a full-blown battle royal, once Pinhead control is broken, then you have, like, Jason versus Michael, Candyman, Jason versus Michael versus Victor Crowley versus Candyman versus the Creeper versus the Tall Man. The Tall Man's like throwing orbs at Pinhead, who's impaling them with the chains, while Freddy teleports in behind him and stabs him from the back. Like, there's so many things you can do, and also you can be brutal. That's the thing. Like, you can be very brutal and have people just get murked. And a lot of the guys will just come back anyway in their movies, and it doesn't matter. But these guys can fucking brutalize each other because most of them aren't good guys. So no one's going to have any emotional attachment to it. I also just imagine Art and Pennywise having a confrontation, and Pennywise is like, "Oh, so you're the new clown." Also, no, I cannot do a Pennywise voice. I can't do either of them, really. Oh, that's the best I can do. Don't you want a balloon, Artie? Yeah, no. Art would not want a balloon. Art, Pennywise offers Art a balloon, and Art pops it with an axe. And Art pulls out an axe and pops it. And then the two of them start fighting, and it's pure fucking chaos. Or like Pennywise at some point would go into his like true form and like wreck Dracula's castle, I imagine. Because yeah, that would be funny. But then you have like the Necronomicon is obviously a big thing. So maybe like Freddy takes it and he gains like power in the real world and then he like tosses Pinhead away and is like, my turn, bitch. And you can make Freddy the final boss if you want. Doesn't really matter. The point is, it's a bunch of horror villains having a fucking brawl. To be honest, you could cut the story. I think the game would sell without it. And just have arcade ladders. And I imagine the ending would be like, everyone's dead. Fuck. All of the endings except for like Ash and Van Helsing and maybe the Reanimator and Predator would be like, everyone's dead. Fuck. In some form, everybody's dead. What do we do? Like, there's no good ending to this. I also imagine if you want to go with a more powerful Dracula, he resurrects an army of zombies to fight on his side. So you could just have a scene of Jason, Michael, Victor Crowley, all just slaughtering their way through of xenomorphs and zombies fighting, of xenomorphs killing zombies, because why not? I also love the idea of the Predator and Ash going up against a xenomorph clean at some point in the story. Like, just absolute bedlam, basically, is what we're talking about here. I don't know. I just. There's so many ways you can go about this. Also, I like the idea of Candyman fighting the nun, because why not? Also, yes, you could throw Annabelle in here. I didn't, just because there's other characters I would rather have, personally. But, yeah. Anyway, I'm done because I'm rambling. Ta ta.